My name is Margaret Sinclair. I'm 27 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a good life. Not a flashy one, not the kind people envy on Instagram, just solid. I worked as a software analyst for a mid-sized tech firm. Long hours, decent pay, steady benefits. The kind of job you don't brag about but quietly build a future on. And I was building that future with Daniel Hayes, my boyfriend of 2 years. We lived together in a one-bedroom apartment just outside the city, split rent evenly, alternated groceries, took turns cooking dinner, him insisting he was better with sauces, me handling everything else. We talked about savings accounts, vacations we couldn't afford yet, maybe upgrading to a bigger place next year. I trusted him. That's the part that still makes my chest feel tight when I think about it. The first sign wasn't dramatic, it was a handbag. Daniel came home one night swinging a black leather designer bag over his shoulder like it was nothing. Clean lines, gold hardware, the kind of thing I'd admired in store windows but never bought. "Is that new?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He smiled, too quickly. "Yeah, I got a bonus." I nodded, even though I knew his job in marketing didn't hand out surprise bonuses. But relationships are built on benefit of the doubt, right? Then came the skincare, then the shoes, then the clothes with price tags I pretended not to recognize. Every time I asked, there was an answer ready, saved up, client gift, side consulting work. And every time, I swallowed the small knot forming in my stomach. The real moment, the one I should have listened to, came 2 weeks later. Daniel walked in late, humming to himself, and dropped his keys on the counter. When he reached for a glass of water, his sleeve slid up. That's when I saw it. A Cartier bracelet. Gold. Impossibly sleek. Heavy enough that it didn't belong on someone who once complained about a $60 dinner bill. My throat went dry. "That's beautiful," I said carefully. "When did you get that?" His mood shifted instantly. "Why are you interrogating me?" he snapped. "I'm not. I'm just asking." "It was a gift," he said, "from a client." I stared at him. "A client gave you a $3,000 bracelet?" He crossed his arms, eyes sharp. "Some of us are actually succeeding in our careers, Margaret. Maybe try being supportive instead of jealous." Jealous. The word stung more than I expected. I wanted to argue, to explain that I wasn't jealous. I was confused, concerned, trying to understand how the man I shared a life with suddenly had access to money I couldn't trace. But instead, I went quiet. That night, Daniel slept with his phone under his pillow. And that was when my certainty about us, about him, finally began to crack. I didn't confront him. Not that night, not the next morning either. Instead, I did what women like me always do when something feels wrong but love is still louder than fear. I watched. I listened. I waited. Daniel became careful in a way that felt rehearsed. His phone never left his hand. Bathroom trips took longer. Showers happened with music blasting, screen locked, notifications silenced. When I'd walk into a room, he'd tilt the phone away just slightly, like muscle memory had already learned the lie. I told myself I was being paranoid, until yesterday. The iPad was on the kitchen counter, propped up against the fruit bowl. We shared it for everything: Netflix, recipes, bills. I was rinsing a mug when the screen lit up. A notification banner slid across the top. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, handsome." My hands froze under the running water. The contact name was just 2 initials, VL. I stared at it for a long time, long enough for the water to go cold, long enough for my heart to start pounding in my ears. I shouldn't have opened it, I knew that. But something inside me, something older than love, sharper than denial, already knew this wasn't harmless. So I tapped. The messages loaded instantly, and just like that, my relationship ended without Daniel even being in the room. There were months of conversations, not flirting, not jokes, logistics, hotel names, dates, times, screenshots of bank transfers, $4,000 a month, sometimes more. And there it was, laid bare in black text on white screen, my boyfriend's other life. The woman's name wasn't abbreviated anymore once I scrolled far enough. Victoria Langford. She was older, much older, late 50s if the photos were accurate. Silver blonde hair, tailored suits, manicured hands, resting on marble countertops and champagne flutes. The kind of woman who looked like money had never once scared her. There were photos of them together. Hotel mirrors, dim lighting, his hand on her waist, her jewelry catching the light, jewelry that matched what Daniel had been wearing lately. I felt nauseous. Then I saw the messages about me. That's when it really hurt. Margaret's so trusting. She actually believes the bonus story. She keeps asking questions, but it's kind of cute how naive she is. I just need to play this right a little longer. Once I'm financially stable, I'm out. I sat down on the kitchen floor. 2 hours passed. I know because the light outside the window changed and my phone buzzed with a work email I didn't open. 4 months. For 4 months, he'd been coming home to me, kissing me goodnight, talking about vacations and savings plans, while treating me like a placeholder until he could afford to leave. Victoria wasn't just cheating with him, she was funding his exit. I didn't cry at first. I couldn't. My body felt too still, like it had gone into shock to protect itself. I took screenshots. Every message, every transaction, every hotel reservation. I emailed them to myself, then to a secure folder, then to a cloud drive I'd never used before. Only then did my hands start shaking. Daniel came home that night acting normal, warm, affectionate. He wrapped an arm around me on the couch and asked what I wanted for dinner. I smiled and said I wasn't hungry. Inside, something hardened. I didn't want to confront him yet. Not like this. Not when I was still bleeding. Instead, I kept thinking about one thing. Victoria Langford was married, and her husband had no idea his money, their money, was being funneled into my boyfriend's secret life. I went to bed that night with my back turned to Daniel, staring at the dark, asking myself the same question over and over. Did he deserve to know? Or was silence the easier betrayal? I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's words glowing on the iPad screen. Naive, temporary, playing it right. By morning, my shock had cooled into something sharper. Resolve. While Daniel showered, humming like a man with nothing to hide, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and typed one name into the search bar. Victoria Langford. It didn't take long. She was exactly what the photos suggested. Prominent, polished, powerful. A senior executive in real estate development. Board member. Philanthropy, gala, regular. The kind of woman whose smile appeared in charity newsletters and whose name was followed by words like visionary and leader. And then there was her husband, Edward Langford, married for 23 years, 2 grown children, family photos everywhere, holiday cards, company websites, smiling vacations frozen in time. They looked solid, untouchable. I stared at one picture longer than the others. Victoria in a cream dress, Edward's arm around her waist, both of them looking straight into the camera like a united front. I wondered when she took the bracelet off before posing. I wondered how many lies lived just outside that frame. I spent 2 days drafting the message. I didn't want to sound bitter or hysterical, or like a scorned girlfriend looking for revenge. This wasn't about humiliating Daniel. At least that's what I told myself. It was about the truth. So I created a throwaway email account and wrote carefully, Mr. Langford, you don't know me, but I believe you deserve information about your wife's activities. I have documentation that Victoria has been involved in a months-long affair with my boyfriend, including financial support. I'm not asking for anything. I only thought you should know. If you want proof, I have it. I read it 6 times. Then I hit send before I could change my mind. He replied within 6 hours. Thank you for telling me. Yes, I would like to see the documentation. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with a strange sense of alignment, like the universe had just clicked into place. I sent everything. Messages, photos, transfers. I blurred what didn't need to be explicit. I included context, timelines, dates, and then I waited. The next morning, there was another email. Margaret, this explains several inconsistencies I've been noticing. I'm going to handle this carefully. Please don't confront either of them yet. I may need you to speak with my attorney. That was it. No rage, no pleading, no disbelief. Just strategy. And that scared me, in a good way. At home, Daniel was better than ever. More affectionate, more attentive. He cooked dinner twice in 1 week. Held my hand in public. Talked about trips we'd take once things settled down. It made my skin crawl. Now that I knew, everything felt performative. Like watching an actor forget he was on stage. I started quietly preparing. Important documents went into my work bag. A few clothes disappeared into storage at my friend's place. Nothing obvious, nothing that would tip him off. At night, he'd curl against me and whisper, I love you. And I'd lie there wondering how long he'd been practicing the words. Edward's attorney contacted me 2 days later. Professional, calm, precise. She asked me to walk through everything, asked clarifying questions, had me sign statements. Before we hung up, she said something that stuck with me. In situations like this, the person who thinks they're untouchable usually isn't. I hung up feeling steadier than I had in weeks. Daniel thought he was playing a long game. He had no idea the board had already been flipped. The night everything collapsed started like any other lie. Daniel came home just after 6, freshly showered, dressed better than usual, dark jacket. The watch Victoria had bought him glinting casually on his wrist like he'd earned it. "I'm meeting colleagues for drinks," he said, kissing my cheek. "Don't wait up." I almost laughed at how effortless it was for him now. "Have fun," I replied, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. At 8:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. This is Edward Langford. It's happening tonight. Turn on channel 7 at 11. My pulse spiked. I spent the next 3 hours pacing the apartment, replaying everything in my head. Every lie, every dismissal, every time I doubted myself instead of him. At 10:58, I sat on the couch, remote in hand. The news opened with traffic and weather. My knee bounced uncontrollably. Then the anchor's tone shifted. Tonight, a prominent local real estate executive is facing serious allegations involving misuse of company and marital funds. Victoria's photo appeared on the screen. My breath caught. The report laid it all out. Divorce papers filed that afternoon. Claims of thousands of dollars funneled through company accounts. Hotel stays. Cash payments. An extramarital relationship supported over several months. They used words like investigation and financial misconduct. I felt dizzy. My phone buzzed again. "Edward, phase 1 complete." Before I could even process that, Daniel started calling. Over and over. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened Instagram. A new account had just posted its first upload. Photos of Daniel and Victoria together. Restaurant booths, hotel lobbies, jewelry I recognized instantly. Screenshots from the news broadcast. The caption read, "Some people call it ambition. Others call it stealing from a marriage." Daniel's name was tagged. So was Victoria's. The comments poured in faster than I could read them. People connecting dots, reposting, screenshotting. By midnight, Daniel stumbled through the front door. He looked wrecked, eyes red, hands shaking, phone clutched like a lifeline. "Margaret," he gasped. "Something terrible happened." I stood up slowly. "I know." His face drained of color. They're saying things on the news. Victoria's husband. This isn't what it looks like." "Isn't it?" I asked quietly. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I took a step closer. "I know about the money, the hotels, the messages. I know what you called me. I know you were planning to leave." Silence crashed between us. Finally, he whispered, "Who told you?" "I found out myself," I said, and then I told Edward. His expression twisted, shock turning to panic, panic turning to rage. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "You had no right." I met his eyes without flinching. "No, Daniel, you ruined it. I just stopped protecting your lies." He broke then, crying, begging, promising it didn't mean anything, that he loved me, that he'd fix it. I listened, calm, empty. When he finished, I picked up my bag. "I'm leaving," I said. "We'll deal with logistics later." He reached for me, missed. As I walked out, I felt something unexpected. Relief, like I'd finally stopped holding my breath. The morning after felt unreal. I woke up on my friend's couch, sunlight slicing through unfamiliar curtains, my phone buzzing nonstop on the coffee table like it was possessed. Missed calls from Daniel. Voicemails I didn't listen to. Texts that swung wildly between apology and accusation. I ignored them all. Instead, I read the message that mattered. "Edward Langford. Victoria came home at 3 a.m. I was waiting with my attorney and a security team. She's been removed from the house. Her access to business accounts has been frozen pending investigation. Thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would." I sat there for a long time, just breathing. The fallout was swift and brutal. Victoria's company placed her on administrative leave within 48 hours. Business partners distanced themselves. Board memberships quietly disappeared from her profile. The same polished world that had once protected her now pretended she'd never belonged to it. Daniel, meanwhile, unraveled. Without Victoria's money, he couldn't afford the lifestyle he'd been showing off. He moved out of our apartment, my apartment, technically, when I changed the locks and had his name removed from the lease. Friends stopped inviting him out. Coworkers whispered. His online presence went dark after too many screenshots started circulating. He tried reaching out one last time. "We could have worked through this if you hadn't gone nuclear." I blocked him. 3 weeks later, Edward and I met once more, this time just to close the loop. He looked tired, older somehow, but steady. "Some people only learn when they lose everything," he said quietly. I nodded. I understood that now. I moved into a smaller place of my own. Nothing fancy, just clean, quiet, and mine. I slept better than I had in months. What surprised me most wasn't the anger fading. It was the shame lifting. I stopped replaying moments. Stopped wondering how I'd missed the signs. I hadn't been foolish. I'd been trusting. There's a difference. Life settled. Work got busy. I started saying no to things that didn't feel right and yes to things that did. One night, over coffee with friends, someone asked if I'd ever date again. I smiled, eventually, because I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd learned something Daniel never did. Love isn't leverage, and loyalty isn't something you trade up. It's something you either have or you don't.